The top stories tonight in Y News. The ruling party, Partido Demokratiko Pilipino Lakas ng Bayan or PDP-Laban, has expelled its Vice Chairman Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi.
The Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency and the Philippine National Police issued their unified guidelines on anti-drug operations.
The Interagency Task Force Against COVID-19 has partially lifted stay-at-home orders for children aged 5 and above in general and modified general community quarantine areas. The Philippine government targets to vaccinate 90% of Filipino senior citizens by the end of July.
Local government units call for a centralized validation system for vaccination cards.
Pfizer to ask U.S. regulators to authorize a booster dose of its COVID-19 vaccine. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Friday, July 9, 2021. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world. I am Mariel Latoza.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news. Children aged 5 years and above are now allowed to go outdoors in some areas under general community quarantine and modified general community quarantine classifications. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
As the Philippines gradually reopens the economy, the Interagency Task Force Against COVID-19 has slightly eased the age-based restrictions for modified general community quarantine and general community quarantine areas. Children 5 years old and above in Metro Manila, Rizal and Bulacan, which are under GCQ with some restrictions, may visit some outdoor areas. However, age-based restrictions are still the same in the provinces of Laguna and Cavite, which are under GCQ with heightened restrictions.
Pinayagan na inyong IATF na lumabas sa outdoor areas ang mga bata, ang ating mga chikiting, na may edad 5 taon at pataas sa ilalim ng Modified General Community Quarantine or General Community Quarantine liban sa mga heightened restrictions.
Outdoor areas where kids are allowed are limited to parks, beach, biking and hiking trails, outdoor tourist sites and attractions, outdoor non-contact sports courts and venues, and alfresco dining establishments. However, mixed-use indoor and outdoor buildings and facilities such as malls and similar establishments are not included in the allowed outdoor areas for children. Kids should be supervised by adults when going outdoors and should observe the minimum public health standards such as wearing a face mask and social distancing. Meanwhile, the local government units may increase the above age restriction of children depending on the situation of COVID-19 in their areas of responsibility. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippine government has set a new target for its vaccination campaign for senior citizens and persons with comorbidities. The government also seeks to expand or focus its vaccination strategy to include other areas outside of the NCR Plus 8 that are experiencing a surge in COVID-19 cases. Aiko Miguel reports why.
The government is targeting to vaccinate at least 90% of the elderly population by the end of this month, according to National Vaccination Operations Center Chairperson, Undersecretary Mirna Kabutahe. 861,560 senior citizens have completed their doses. There are 8 million senior citizens in the country who should receive their COVID-19 jab. Also, the government is eyeing to vaccinate 90% of individuals with comorbidity by the end of August. There are 1.09 million out of the over 7 million A3 sector, or those with comorbidity who are fully vaccinated.
we are now focusing in accomplishing our priority groups, A1, A2, A3. Ilang beses na natin sinabi, these are the most at risk, most vulnerable. We have some deadlines for our regions, supplies permitting.
The DOH explains the fast pace of the vaccination depends on the stable supply and continuous arrival of COVID-19 vaccines. The DOH also assures that those who have received their first dose will have their second dose, as this have been reserved. The vaccine cluster encounters problem when delivery of vaccines is postponed, like the supposed weekly delivery of Sinovac.
Ang dating polisiya, we reserve a second dose. So we do that for Gamaleya, Sputnik V, kasi iba po yung component 1 sa component 2. So hindi talagang naka-reserve yung component 2. Sa Pfizer, naka-reserve din, and for Moderna. Dito po sa AstraZeneca, at one point, nung dumami yung mga cases and then we had a good number of vaccine, we decided to use all as first doses. Pero dumating naman in time yung mga second dose.
The Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARM has recorded the lowest COVID-19 vaccination coverage in the country due to logistical issues. Kabutahe said the BARM has received the least allocation of doses because the government is facing impediments in the delivery of vaccines, particularly to Basilan, Sulu and Tawi-Tawi areas.
In terms of the challenges sa BARM, magkalayo kasi yan eh. Meron tayong Maguindanao at Lanao del Sur. Wala silang cold room na malaki, hindi kagaya sa original region. So they store it in refrigerator. Basilan, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi are adjacent to Zamboanga. Nakikigamit sila ng cold room sa ating Region 9. But now they cannot be accommodated kasi nga marami na rin bakuna na dumadating. The regular vaccines and the COVID vaccines.
Kabutahe did not provide any details on the number of doses that the government has allotted for the Bangsamoro region. DOH data show that areas with the highest vaccination rate are the National Capital Region and the 8 priority areas, including Rizal, Laguna, Cavite, Bulacan, Pampanga, Batangas, Metro Cebu, and Metro Davao. Other priority areas are Baguio, Tuguegarao, Naga, Legazpi, Bacolod, Iloilo City, Dumaguete, Zamboanga City, Cagayan de Oro, and General Santos City in the vaccine distribution priority list. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
No less than President Rodrigo Duterte himself welcomed the arrival of 1,124,100 doses of AstraZeneca vaccines donated by the Japanese government last night at the Villamor Air Base. According to the National Task Force Against COVID-19, the donated vaccines will be used for Filipinos belonging to priority groups A1, A2, A3, A4, and A5. The vaccine donations are part of Japan's assistance to its neighbors and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, on top of its contribution to the COVAX facility. The World Health Organization, or WHO, meanwhile lauded the strong partnership between the Philippines and Japan in ending the COVID-19 pandemic. Likewise, the WHO official encourages local governments to make the best use of available vaccines by prioritizing people at highest risk, especially the elderly.
Meanwhile, fully vaccinated domestic travelers may still need to show an RT-PCR COVID-19 test result when traveling in the country. Meanwhile, stranded overseas Filipino workers in countries with travel restrictions may be coming home to the Philippines soon. Rosalie Cos explains why.
The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases clarified that local government units, or LGUs, can still require fully vaccinated travelers a negative swab test result as requirement for entry into their jurisdictions. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque made the statement after some LGUs raised concerns over the eased travel restrictions on fully vaccinated individuals by requiring only an authentic vaccination card, as stated in the Task Force Resolution number 124 and 125.
Dahil ito po ay bilang alternatibo, po pwede pa rin pong mag-require ang ilang mga LGU ng RT-PCR.
Roque, however, stressed that any individual who will present forged or falsified vaccination cards shall be dealt with in accordance with the law. Meanwhile, the government has allowed the conduct of special commercial flights to bring home overseas Filipino workers who were stranded in the Middle East and other countries covered by the country's inbound travel ban. Roque said that under the policy approved by the IATF, special commercial flights will cover stranded OFWs in Oman, United Arab Emirates, India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bangladesh. These special commercial flights are, however, subject to guidelines such as the creation of a special working group to determine the implementing protocols for the special commercial flights in coordination with the concerned airlines. The Philippines' travel restrictions is effective until July 15. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Following the IATF's order for easing the travel restrictions on fully vaccinated individuals, local government units are asking the government to provide a validation system for vaccination cards. According to the Department of Health or DOH, the system is now in process. Janice Inhente explains why.
The Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines or ULAP expressed hesitance in allowing the entry of fully vaccinated travelers in their areas by requiring only an authentic vaccination card. Under IATF EID Resolution number 124-B, fully vaccinated people will only need to present their vaccination card for interzonal travel as well as for interzonal movement. However, the IATF said LGUs can still require fully vaccinated travelers a negative swab test result as requirement for entry in their jurisdiction. According to ULAP President Quirino, Governor Daquila Cua, vaccination cards must have security features to verify if it is authentic and the person holding it is fully vaccinated.
So yung mga yun ang niraise namin na makipagtulungan sana sa DICT and DOH para magkaroon ng validation and verification system yung mga gustong gumamit. Yung ibang LGUs ay ano rin naman supportive and interesado at lalo na syempre kung low risk ang isang lugar, talaga namang maunawaan natin na gusto rin nilang magkaroon ng application na gano'n, na vaccination card na lang.
Boracay is among the tourist destination in the country that still requires a negative RT-PCR test. Malaya Clan Mayor Floy Libar Bautista says they will retain the requirement unless there is a unified system to verify vaccination cards.
Kung kaya nga nila ipiki itong RT-PCR test sa pasok ng Boracay, how much more itong vaccination card. At least siguro po mayroon na yung unified card or may mga security code yung mga card na yan, ay pwede siguro natin no-date na yung RT-PCR. At sa ngayon, hanggat hindi pa natin ma-assure ang hindi pa tampered yung card na yan ay delikado.
Local government units in Metro Manila are implementing strategies to ensure that vaccination cards are not fake. In Pasig City, vaccination cards are integrated with the city's contact tracing system.
Yung vaccination card po natin, mahirap pikein dahil po naka-integrate ito sa Pasig Pass. So ang kagandahan po ng Pasig Pass ay mula sa testing data ng DOH hanggang sa contact tracing, hanggang sa vaccination records, integrated po lahat ito. So ibig sabihin, yung QR code nyo na Pasig Pass, nakapaloob po doon yung vaccination records nyo. So kung gagawa lang po kayo, mag-iimbento lang kayo, pag scanan po yon ng scanners natin, makikita po kaagad.
Vaccination cards in Makati and Muntinlupa City have QR codes.
Malabo siya mapeke kasi meron silang control number over it na kung pepekein man sila, madali sila matitrace.
The Quezon City government meanwhile said it is affixing a tamper-proof seal to its vaccination cards.
With all of those incentives being given to fully vaccinated people, the chance to travel, for example, without an RT-PCR test, or the chance to receive freebies from many establishments, hindi malayo na baka may mga, mag-falsify ng kanilang vaccination cards.
A new vaccination card, meanwhile, will be issued in Mandaluyong City with added security features.
Yung vaccination card, nagpapagawa na si Mayor na may control number. para at least yung mga lalabas sa starting Monday, may control number na siya. Meron na rin kami vaccination certificate na may issue kung may mga request sa amin.
The Department of Health says an application will soon be launched in the country for a centralized vaccination card authentication.
Yung sa DICT na gagawin, it's digitized. Nasa telepono lang po natin, meron lang po tayong parang application at nandun na po yung inyong vaccination card which can be verified by scanning the QR code.
Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
For those watching our 24/7 live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
The PDP-Laban Executive Committee has passed a resolution declaring party Vice Chairman Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi and 2 other members immediately and automatically expelled. Nel Maribohok will tell us why.
The Partido Demokratiko Pilipino Lakas ng Bayan or PDP-Laban led by Senator Manny Pacquiao as party president has expelled party Vice Chairman and Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi, Deputy Secretary General Melvin Matibag, and Membership Committee Head Astra Naik for violating party constitution by showing allegiance to a political party apart from PDP-Laban. This was based on a resolution released by Senator Pacquiao and PDP-Laban National Executive Committee on June 12. The resolution states that Vice Chairman Cusi is already manipulating the party to support the Duterte-Duterte tandem, which is a blatant admission of supporting Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte for president, who is not a member of the party. Mayor Duterte led the Davao-based regional party Hugpong ng Pagbabago. Also, the committee issued a resolution declaring the nullification of March 31 meeting of the party and also the scheduled July 17 National Assembly called upon by Cusi and Matibag. Another resolution issued by the NEC which authorized Pacquiao to launch crackdown against party charter violators. Matibag immediately responds to the action of Senator Pacquiao and its committee. According to Matibag, he does not give credence to the said actions. He said the committee of Pacquiao is irrelevant and emphasized that on July 17 will be the day of their reckoning. Matibag encouraged the group of Pacquiao to challenge the actions of the National Assembly, which he said haven't got any fighting chance. The group of Senator Pacquiao and PDP-Laban Vice Chairman Cusi are in rift since the start of the preparation of the party for the 2022 national elections. Also, the chairman of the party, President Rodrigo Duterte himself, criticized Pacquiao over his allegation of corruptions in his administration. Nel Maribohok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency and the Philippine National Police issued a set of unified coordination guidelines during the conduct of anti-illegal drug operations. Leah Ilagan explains why.
To avoid fatal misencounters in anti-illegal drug operations, PNP Chief Police General Guillermo Eleazar and PDEA Director General Wilkins Villanueva signed an agreement for a unified operational guideline during a ceremony held in Camp Crame. Only PNP Drug Enforcement Group, Special Operations Unit, and Drug Enforcement Units of regional, district, provincial, city, municipal, and police stations are authorized to conduct anti-illegal drug operations, coordinate with PDEA. A one jurisdiction, one operation rule shall be observed.
Ayaw natin na may 2 unit na nag-ooperate sa isang lugar. So kung meron na nag-ooperate dyan, we will not allow anymore na mag-ooperate doon sa lugar na yun to avoid that misencounter. So that is the, yun yung basic natin na guideline dyan.
A pre-operation report and coordination form must be submitted by the PNP to PDEA if in case a follow-up operation is needed in another target location separate from the first area of operation. In case the 2 or more operating units simultaneously coordinated with PDEA concerning the same area of jurisdiction, an order of priority shall be observed. However, operating units may come to an agreement not to observe the order of priority. Prime importance will always be given to an operation where the subject target is of greater value.
Kung halimbawa, nag-coordinate Yung pulis natin nalilipat siya. Yung lilipatan niya merong ibang operation doon, so di PDEA, probably hindi niya i-allow yun para maiwasan yung misencounter.
Sabi kong coordination na although merong nakalatag, pero nasa PDEA kung sinong i-approve, depende sa laki ng operation na pwedeng gawin.
General Eleazar warned police operatives of admin case if they will conduct an operation without the approval or coordination paper from PDEA. Last February, 3 people were killed in a botched buy-bust operation in Quezon City when anti-drug operatives of the Quezon City Police District Special Operations Unit and PDEA Special Enforcement Services fall to a misencounter due to lack of coordination. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The governing rules on the use of body-worn cameras of the Philippine National Police will be out soon. The rules will provide conditions that judges will require whenever they grant applications for warrants, which law enforcers must comply with. Dante Amento explains why.
The Supreme Court has approved the rules on the use of body-worn cameras of law enforcers during operations. It will be published in the official gazette or in the newspaper of general circulation.
The court and bank approved already the final draft. But of course, it will have to be printed in the Gilbert, you know that. And each member would have to sign the final resolution. Hopefully by Friday, it will be signed and duly promulgated.
Supreme Court Chief Justice Alexander Hismundo said the rules will become effective after 15 days of publication. The Chief Magistrate has assured equal protection of constitutional rights under the rules they crafted.
As far as the meeting with the PNP is concerned, we clarified that we crafted the rule in such a way that there is a balancing between the protection of individuals vis-a-vis their constitutional rights and that the rules will not hamper the operations of law enforcement agencies.
Hismundo added these rules will address some problems being encountered such as in police operations.
We were both positive during our discussions. In fact, they themselves, the PNP has promulgated its own rules on the use of body-worn cameras during their operations. So we are optimistic that something will definitely come out of it to address these current issues on law enforcement operations.
Philippine National Police Chief General Guillermo Eleazar has recently disclosed the public cannot access the body cameras at all times.
Narinig ko sinabi nila, hindi naman ibig sabihin ng body camera, anybody could just access or request yan. There are only some instances na pwede ito na maging available sa public. At sa pagkakaintindi ko, habang iniintay pa natin, kung merong mga allegation of abuse or lapses, yun pwede.
The use of body cam was pushed when 17-year-old Kian De Los Santos died in police operation in 2017. Other incidents of deaths in anti-drug operations occurred and police personnel said the suspects resisted arrest and fought back. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Authorities started implementing the window hours for fish pen operation activities in Taal Lake, but some fish folks request for longer hours. Asher Kadapan Jr. tells us why.
Harvesting fishes in Taal Lake requires longer than the 6-hour time window provided for fish pen operation activities in the lake. But the Protected Area Management Board, or PAMB, only approved the window hours of 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. due to the continuous unrest of Taal volcano. Despite the threat, some fish pen operators say that it is less than the time they need.
Para sa amin po, kulang po yung sa aming oras. Dahil po pagka kami nag-harvest po, matagal po yung oras namin dito pag naghihila po kami ng isda. Dahil ang aming pong trabaho po, harvester po kami. Ang hindi mo po pwedeng bilisan ang hila po ng isda dahil kailangan po namin madala dito ng buhay.
With recent incidents of fish kill in Taal Lake, the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources recommends to relocate fish pens to areas with sufficient quantity of dissolved oxygen in the water. Towing fish pens also takes time, especially as most operators manage more than one of them across the lake. Talisay Mayor Jerry Natanawan appeals with the fisher folks who only rely on the fish pens for their living.
Bilang isang punong bayan ay gusto ko silang mabigyan ng oras talaga na mapuntahan o mabantayan ng kanilang mga palaisdaan.
The Philippine Coast Guard, on the other hand, stringently implements the window hours in the area. The law enforcer also reminds the public that only fish pen operation-related activities are allowed in Taal Lake.
Hindi po natin pinapayagan yung katulad po ng mga nakaraang araw na may pumupunta para manguha ng mga lakal. So hindi po 'yun kasali doon. Yung pangingisda po doon, yung paglalagay ng lambat para kumuha ng isda.
Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A sunken cargo vessel involved in a collision that transpired on Thursday at the South Harbor anchorage in Manila Bay stays unremoved in the area. The Philippine Coast Guard, on the other hand, clarifies that no oil spill have been observed after the incident. Marvin Calas reports why.
The MV Palawan Pearl remains half submerged at the Manila Bay. The cargo vessel sank after colliding with a foreign utility vessel yesterday. Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson Commodore Armand Balilo says removing the sunken ship in the area remains under the cargo vessel company's responsibility.
Hindi kami mag-aalis niyan yung salvage company ng company. Na nakipag-meeting pa sila, malaking gastusin yan. Company decision yan, wala sa amin.
Meanwhile, the Philippine Coast Guard observes no signs of oil spill around the sunken MV Palawan Pearl. But due to the presence of oil sheen around the ship, the PCG had already placed 4 segments of oil spill boom within the area. Balilo added that there is no reason to be alarmed with the possibility of an oil spill from the MV Palawan Pearl. The official said although the ship contains 3,000 liters of oil, it is an ordinary diesel that gets easily dissipated under the heat of the sun and over the strong waves in case of a possible leakage. However, the Coast Guard remains observing the possible oil leak from the ship's engine, clarifying that it is just in a little amount. Balilo mentions that they could also file an administrative case after the ongoing investigation of the incident.
Ang parties concerned dyan, yung narigabiyado, parang sasakyan niya na nabangga, idemanda mo yung nakabangga sa'yo kung mapatunayan na may negligence sila dun sa kanilang undertaking. Sa amin, on our part, we will look into the administrative sanction kung meron after ng investigation.
At the juncture, assigned personnel of the PCG remains guarding the sunken ship until it is finally removed in the area. Marvin Calas, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
As the Philippines ranks last in a list of world's safest countries, the palace believes it is only one among many varied points of view. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs disregards the recent drop of the Philippines in a list of powerful passports in the world. Arlene Delgado will tell us why.
The palace maintains its optimism despite the Philippines landing in the last spot of the world's safest countries ranking by international business magazine Global Finance. The Philippines placed 134 with a score of 14.8899, while Iceland topped the list with a 3.9724 score. According to the report, the ranking takes into account 3 fundamental factors: war and peace, personal security, and natural disaster risk, including the unique risk factors stemming from COVID-19. It also gave weight to number of COVID-19 deaths and vaccination. However, the report did not include countries that have missing data in any of the categories. In a statement, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says the opinion of the international magazine is but one among many varied points of view. He took pride that Filipinos are growing more resilient and that the country is doing well in its COVID-19 response. For Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, the comparison should be stopped and the public should focus on what the country is doing to fight the pandemic.
So ang bottom line lang po ang sinasabi natin, let's take this with a grain of salt, pag-aralan maigi kung ano ang sinasabi ng datos. tignan natin kung bakit kinukumpara tayo sa ibang bansa with different settings and with different circumstances. And ang Philippines talaga is prone to natural disasters. But you cannot rank me or rank the Philippines na lowest because meron akong uncontrollable factors such as these natural disasters.
It was not the first time that the Philippines hit the rock bottom. In 2019, the country also ranked as the least safe at the 128th spot due to poor scores in peace, security, and prevalence of natural disasters. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs believes there is nothing to be worried about the recent sliding of the Philippines in the 2021 Henley Passport Index. From last year's 76th place, the Philippines dropped a few notches to 82nd spot. It shows that Philippine passport holders can access only 66 destinations visa-free. Meanwhile, Japan got the most powerful passport with 193 destinations.
It's opinion-based po yan eh. And with the pandemic, of course, a lot of the passports were also affected, not just ours. Because we have entry bans. So when we have entry bans, the other countries will also have entry bans against us.
Based on its website, the Henley Passport Index ranks the world's passports according to the number of destinations their holders can access without a prior visa. Jorlene Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A lawmaker pushes for the removal of strict requirements for the license renewal of professionals in the Philippines. According to the ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro, the continuing professional development had been turned into another business opportunity by some private sectors. Nel Maribuhok explains why.
The proposal to repeal the Republic Act No. 10912 or the Continuing Professional Development Act of 2016 has been pushed in the House of Representatives. Some lawmakers particularly want to remove the provision of requiring professionals to accumulate credit units every 3 years by attending seminars, training courses, and other professional development activities to be able to renew their licenses or continue practicing their professions.
Pero dapat tanggalin itong pahirap na every 3 years na renewal ng mga license or ID ng mga professionals.
According to ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro, a teacher alone needs to pay a huge amount just to complete the requirements for the renewal of license.
Sa isang seminar, pinakamababang binabayaran 5,000. So siguro mga 5 units yan or mga 3 units. Mag-iipon ka ng mag-iipon ka ng 45 units.
The Solon said the required units ranges from 15 to 45 for most professionals to as high as 120 units for certified public accountants that equate to thousands of pesos. Also, the CPD law, she said, became another business opportunity of the private sector, turning professionals into milking cows. The said seminars or other learning activities should also be subsidized by the government.
Dapat sila yung mag-provide ng quality free na continuing professional development.
The proposal to amend the CPD law will now go through the second reading of the lower house, and the said proposed removal of strict compliance for the license renewal will be pushed by the lawmaker. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, unveiled its motorcycle emergency lay-by at the ground level of Quezon Avenue flyover on EDSA. According to the MMDA, the emergency lay-by will provide shelter for motorcycle riders during heavy downpours. The emergency lay-by has allotted spaces for motorcycles to use and has designated entrance and exit signs. MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos said motorcycle riders would be allowed to stop at the emergency lay-by when raining so they do not block the highway while waiting for the rain to stop. However, Abalos reminded motorcyclists that the emergency lay-by is only a rain shelter and using it as a parking area is prohibited.
And for the news abroad, U.S. President Joe Biden details that they will now be going ahead of schedule and will withdraw U.S. military troops from Afghanistan by the end of August. Joselito Liquido tells us the details live. Joselito?
Mariel, the 20-year-long army which was jump-started by the 9/11 attacks was originally set to end by September 11, scheduled to be in line with the 20th anniversary of the attack, but will now proceed to the 31st of August. In his announcement, U.S. President Joe Biden implied that withdrawing U.S. troops from Afghanistan, like previous U.S. President Donald Trump agreed to, prevents any further attacks on soldiers and NATO allies. Hence why the U.S. military and NATO allies have reduced their presence in Afghanistan in the last week. President Biden also expressed his concerns regarding the risk of sending more American children of the next generation to participate in the war if prolonged. In a meeting held between President Biden, Afghanistan President Ghani, and Chairman Abdullah, they came to the conclusions about the responsibilities of the Afghanistan leaders. Here is what President Biden has to say.
We did not go to Afghanistan to nation build. And it's the right and the responsibility of the Afghan people alone to decide their future and how they want to run their country. Afghan leaders have to come together and drive toward a future that the Afghan people want and they deserve. In our meeting, I also assured Ghani that U.S. support for the people of Afghanistan will endure. We will continue to provide civilian and humanitarian assistance, including speaking out for the rights of women and girls.
Back to you, Mariel.
Joselito, with the U.S. military withdrawing, what will the current status of the Afghanistan and the Taliban be?
Mariel, the United States and the West are hoping that the Taliban will be secluded in the rural areas of Afghanistan, while the Afghan government and allies reside in the cities where the majority of the population is and where they will be run in full control. With the Taliban still being a major power, supporters of the government wish that the dispute between the two will be solved in a political manner rather than a military means. Mariel?
Thank you, Joselito Liquido, reporting live. Recent approval of a new drug for Alzheimer's disease has been revised to limit the intended population for treatment. Charis Longbowen will tell us why live. Yes, Charis, good evening.
Good evening, Mariel. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, has amended its approval of the Aduhelm drug developed by Biogen and is now recommending it only to Alzheimer's disease patients in the earliest stages. The decision followed after researchers and lawmakers criticized FDA's approval of the drug last month, against the recommendation of an external panel that reviewed the clinical trial evidence. Only one trial in the clinical study of the drug found significant evidence of slower cognitive decline in patients who also took the highest dose, to which critics have expressed their concerns over the effectiveness of the drug. FDA spokesperson Michael Felberbaum said the initial approval of Aduhelm has caused confusion among prescribers and stakeholders. The updated label on the prescription of the drug now only recommends it to patients with mild cognitive impairment, which is in line with the clinical trial study population. Under the new labeling, approximately 2 million Americans will still be eligible for the treatment. Mariel?
Charis, aside from the fact that the drug has only been tested for patients with mild cognitive impairment, what are some other reasons why the FDA backtracked on their initial recommendation?
Mariel, FDA's previous blanket endorsement implied that around 6 million Americans would have been eligible for the treatment, raising concerns that the drug, which costs $56,000 a year, would cause excessive financial burden for Medicare, considering that the drug may not even be effective on all patients. The cost also does not cover any additional testing and scans that patients would need throughout the treatment. Mariel?
Thank you, Charis Longbowen, reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand. Pfizer is planning to ask U.S. regulators to authorize a booster dose of its COVID-19 vaccine. Annie Manzilia tells us why live. Yes, Annie, please go ahead.
Marielle, Pfizer and its partner BioNTech released a statement Thursday saying that they would seek the U.S. federal regulatory approval for a booster shot following Israel's health and ministry's report of the recent drop of vaccine's effectiveness, which fell to 64%. Pfizer's chief scientific officer, Michael Dawson, said that although Pfizer vaccine is 95% highly active against the Delta variant, the effectiveness would most likely drop as antibodies wane, which can cause infections and mild disease. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said that Americans who have received the full vaccine need not a booster shot at this time. They are prepared, however, for booster doses if and when the science demonstrates that they are needed. Some scientists have questioned the need for booster shots, but two separate reports, one published in the journal Thursday and the other in the New England Journal of Medicine Wednesday, echoed Dawson's statement about the waning of antibodies. Early data from Pfizer's clinical study with developing partner BioNTech showed that a third booster dose generates antibody levels that are 5 to 10-fold higher than after the second dose. Dawson said the continued emergence of the variants and the observed decline in efficacy over time are the key factors driving their belief that a booster dose will likely be necessary to maintain the highest levels of protection. Marielle?
Annie, aside from the US, are there countries who are planning to implement these booster shots?
Marielle, Dawson did not name the countries, but he said multiple countries in Europe and elsewhere have already approached them to discuss booster doses, and some may begin administering them before a potential US authorization. Marielle?
Thank you, Annie Mancilia, reporting live from Singapore. In Iceland, trials of a slightly shorter working week have been an overwhelming success, with the researchers finding it help increase productivity. Nina Bascon will tell us why.
Around 2,500 workers, or 1% of Iceland's population, took part in the trials initiated by Reykjavik City Council and Iceland's national government. Autonomy and the Association for Sustainability and Democracy commenced their study on 4-day workweek trials in the country during pre-pandemic years from 2015 up to 2019. Workers from different public sectors such as preschools, hospitals, social service providers, and some offices were asked to shorten their weekly working hours from 40 to 35 while retaining the same salary. Study found that workers had lesser exposure to stress and had minimized the risk of burnout, which translate to even higher productivity rate if not the same. Director of Research at Autonomy, Will Strong, stated this study was the largest undertaken in the public sector, and the outcome was an overwhelming success. Several trials have now commenced in other parts of the world, such as in Spain and in New Zealand, where multinational companies have 20% reduction in work hours. By reducing the work hours, carbon footprint in the environment is also said to be reduced. Nina Bascon, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Back to the news in the Philippines. The country logged 5,881 new cases of novel coronavirus disease, pushing the nationwide tally of infections to 1,461,455. In its latest bulletin, the Department of Health, or DOH, said the number of active cases in the country slightly went up to 51,902. Of these cases, 90.3% are mild, 4.4% are asymptomatic, 1.56% are moderate, 2.2% are severe, and 1.5% are in critical condition. Total recoveries climbed to 1,383,833 after 3,003 more patients recuperated from the viral disease. The death toll rose to 25,720 with 70 new fatalities. The DOH noted in its report that 5 accredited testing laboratories failed to submit data on time. A JP Morgan analysis found the economy of the Philippines and 4 others are among the most vulnerable to the COVID-19 Delta variant within emerging markets. However, the Department of Health says no country is immune to coronavirus variants. Aiko Miguel explains why.
No country is spared. This is the reaction of the Department of Health, citing a study that the economy of the Philippines and 4 other countries are among the most vulnerable to the COVID-19 Delta variant.
Lahat ng bansa ngayon sa buong mundo vulnerable sa variants. Wala pong single country na magiging immune sa vulnerability nitong mga variants na ito.
International financial institution JP Morgan's analysis looked at the spread of the virus Delta variant compared to the pace of vaccination in the country. It adds in which some countries is not accelerating enough to offset higher rates of transmission. The report also said pressure on healthcare systems and a higher absolute number of deaths could occur, likely raising pressure on some governments to extend or impose mobility restrictions. This is even if the Delta variant is shown to result in lower hospitalization and death rates. The DOH, on the other hand, emphasized that even rich and powerful countries have Delta variant, causing surge in the country.
Naipakita po yan ng Delta variant sa mga bansang may mga matataas na ekonomiya. We have Europe having surges right now. We have states in the United States where there are surges and spikes because of the Delta variant. We have our neighboring ASEAN countries kung saan 97% ng mga kaso ngayon sa Indonesia is the Delta variant. Sa Malaysia, 30%.
The health department also insists that the government has been intensifying vaccination and COVID-19 mitigation measures to cut COVID-19 transmission.
Lahat tayo vulnerable dyan sa Delta variant. That's why we are trying to intensify all of our controls para ma-contain po natin, ma-prevent po natin ang pagpasok ng variant na ito sa ating mga komunidad.
Aside from the Philippines, economies of Peru, Colombia, South Africa, and Thailand are among the most vulnerable to the COVID-19 Delta variant within emerging markets, mostly due to low vaccination rates. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And before we close, we will leave you with the final word, giving glory to God, from the book of Luke, chapter 16, verse 10. It says, "He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. And he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much."
And those are the reasons behind the news, July 9, 2021. I am Mariela Toza, sitting in for Hardin Delgado, live from Australia.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.